a tiny bit. Cool. Good morning, my good homies. Sending all the love to the homies this morning. This is a kind of an interesting happenstance. I actually warmed up today. I've been playing for like 5-10 minutes. Good morning, Senor Riker. It's good to see you again, I guess. Still want a donut? I don't know if I can give you a donut. I don't know. It's gonna be a pretty lazy day, I think, because I'm pretty tired. Wow, my hair is way too long right now. Way too long, maybe not way too long. However, it is long. Also, it looks kind of weird with the light behind it. Yeah, that's life. That's life, I guess. Cool. Yeah. Right on. I'm gonna rant a little bit and then we'll be done. Let me put this down. I really like some of that ambient stuff today. Good ambient stuff. Please pardon the mess. That's all good. Anyway, what was I gonna rant about today? I feel weird with this light behind me. I'm gonna put this over here. Whoop. Okay, let's see here. Cool. Right, so, whoop. This feels like an interesting angle. All the same, it's kind of weird that it's like waist level. Whatever. I'm not gonna worry about it. So, I think the topic that I vaguely placed there was like flavors of egolessness. And so, I guess to go into that, I should just tell you guys about this week, because this has been a really crazy week. Because like, okay, well, so as far as egolessness goes, there were three times this week that I felt very egoless, and I'd love to just tell you guys about what that felt like, to kind of maybe give some perspective, or I don't know, just tell you about it. So on Tuesday, was it? No, Wednesday. Monday? on one of those days, I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. On Wednesday, we had this like group meditation at School Minds, and I found myself very deeply absorbed into the meditation, into breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. When you really, really fall very deeply into that, you can kind of cut off your consciousness from the outside world and only be focused on that. That's not to say that you don't experience the outside world, because perceptions are all still there. However, you're not, you're not necessarily connected to them in such a way that you're experiencing them all that deeply. You're just highly aware of them, but not like in them. Anyway, so I step out of this meditation of incredibly deep absorption, and I won't go into this too much, but in that meditation I began to hallucinate a little bit. Not anything too crazy, just like some very minor aural, auditory hallucinations. I was hearing sounds amplified. I was hearing just about everything that was going on around me very deeply and immediately within my ears. And I won't talk about that all that much. But after that kind of subsided, I was just walking around campus and went to the lab for a little while and, did some work. But then as I was walking to drive home, and I just felt very what is the word I'm looking for here? Almost as if, I don't want to say non-existent, but that might be the closest word. And actually that's a similarity that all of these three things kind of have. The thing is, you walk around campus in this kind of mindset of egolessness. You just see what's going on, but you don't necessarily have to be there to know that it exists. And that's why it's kind of like non-existence, in that the whole world is going on, the whole situation is going on, with or without you. So for example, you walk across the field, you know the field will be there, whether you're there or not. So that's an interesting feeling, to say the least, because your absorption of that place is just very different in that mindset. You're just observing. You're not even interacting necessarily. This is kind of a side tangent, but one thing I like to do is try to walk as quietly as possible, make absolutely no sound. And one of my roommates and I had a really, really great talk about this, because the idea behind walking very silently is people put so much in the background when they live in the world. Meaning, like, you don't pay all that much attention to a doorknob. You use a doorknob, sure, and you know how to, and you get it right every time, but you don't pay any attention to it whatsoever. Because there's kind of this constant process of assimilation of millions of stimuli in every moment, and so we don't have the brain power to process all of them, so certain things don't really pass through a filter. And so by walking extremely silently, I try not to pass through people's filters. I try to not interrupt or disturb the surface of the water, so to speak. And it's interesting to think about that, because, like, my roommate asked me, don't you want to kind of be in the spotlight? And I kind of do. Like, I'm an extrovert, like, I like receiving attention and stuff. However, I think it's possible to be in the spotlight, but also be in the background. Meaning, music being a great example for this. You stand up on a stage. If that show is about the music and not about you, sure, you're in the spotlight, but really it's not about you. You're in the background. It's about the music is kind of the idea there. And so in that regard, your personal, whatever you bring to that situation, shouldn't disturb the peace of people interacting with the music, which is something beyond that, beyond you and beyond them. It's something that, just exists in space, kind of. And, yeah. That was kind of a side tangent. I forget where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I get back to my car. I'm driving home, and I'm like, how many people drove their car home today? How this action that I'm doing, getting in a car and driving home, has absolutely nothing to do with me. People do it all the time. Probably billions of people do it in a single day, And that's kind of interesting because it's like, it still happens to me personally, and I still experience it personally. But there's nothing personal about the action itself. Get home, get a drink of water. How many people got home today and had some water? Again, nothing specific to me. So in mindfulness, we observe these actions, kind of observe where we are as we do them. And that's a big part of it. And that goes back to what I had just said about this action is personal in that I experience it personally, but it's impersonal in that the action was there long before me, and the action has nothing to do with me. And that's kind of what this egoless state kind of felt like, because I stopped observing, I began observing the self doing the action as just another self doing just another action. There's no me in it necessarily. I mean, even all the feelings and the thoughts and whatever is on my mind is separate. That's, it's just another person thinking just another thought, feeling just another feeling, doing just another action. You kind of expand it in that regard. So then where is the self? Well, I don't have a good answer for that. Raises the question, where does the self begin? Where does it end? All the thoughts that you've had in your life, are any of them truly unique? Sometimes you get a really good idea, but all the thoughts, oh, that food looks good, that's been thought before. Oh, that person is attractive, that's been thought very often. That's thought billions of times a day, maybe trillions. Feelings, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel joy, I feel, whatever. All of those have been felt before. However, the great thing about feelings, actually backing up a tiny bit, the great thing about all of these things together, I talked about this a while ago, they're called the 5 aggregates: physical sensations, mental thoughts, perceptions, what you're perceiving, reactions to those perceptions, oftentimes associated with feelings, and then consciousness. These 5 things, it's said in the Heart Sutra, which is kind of one of the highest sutras in Buddhism. It's said in that sutra that you can't have one of these things without having the other 4. And so what this means is moment to moment you have physical sensations, you have thoughts, you have feelings, you have whatever, and you can observe all of them, and you're always conscious. And so in that regard, people are unique because they are what is being experienced here and now. Yeah. So yeah, that was one experience I had of egolessness. It also raises questions like love. Like, what is love? Has this been done before? This interaction that I have with another person, is there anything unique about it? That's really what this all comes down to. Is there anything unique about anything? Or has it all been done before? Or has it all been felt before or thought before? And I think the fact that all 5 things are connected and you can't have one without the other 4 means that things are indeed unique, because, you know, your perceptions when you have a thought at the same time as whatever you're feeling and whatever you're conscious of, and etc. That is unique, moment to moment, always, always. But if you take one of those things, just a feeling, just a physical sensation, just a perception. Perception's kind of, I'll come back to that. Are any of those things unique? Well, I guess in a sense they are. Because you know what happy feels like to you. You know what the world looks like to you. This is what I was going to say about perceptions. Everyone perceives their own worlds. And it's possible that we perceive massively different worlds. You know, if you took my brain and threw it in someone else, I would probably be disoriented beyond belief, because even the way things appear in space and that we interact with them, you know, is my red your red, or is my red your blue, that sort of thing. You could make that same argument about literally any perception, in that the way I like to think of this is reality is self-contained in individuals. So the feelings you feel are what they feel like to you. The thoughts you think are what they seem to you. What you're conscious of is unique to you. So all these things. So you can kind of tell I'm still kind of figuring this out in my own head. But I find a lot of beauty in this kind of egoless state, that all these feelings of great joy and great pain as well, great beauty, great whatever, the greatest things, they all already exist and are just waiting for you to find them and stumble into them. I'm going to give you the 2 other examples of egolessness that I felt this week. And I'll do them in chronological order. So Thursday night, I went to something called Rhythm Sanctuary, which is like an ecstatic dance ritual. I think I talked about it maybe 2 weeks ago. Basically, you go to this big dance hall, and a bunch of people are there. Probably about 100 to 150 people. And inside the hall, you're not allowed to speak, but they play like psytrance music, psychedelic trance music, kind of ambient stuff, and you kind of just vibe out. It's really great dance music. You vibe out really hard. Even though you're not allowed to speak, there's a whole lot of communication between people, obviously, and it's very you just vibe out with people, really. It's very liberating to, you know, I want to move my arm. It moves. You know, like, that's kind of the miracle of life. You know, I want to move my arm. Oh my God, it worked. You know? Because what process is going on there that lets me do this from this? We take it for granted so often. It's kind of the thing. Anyway, I go to this Rhythm Sanctuary ecstatic dance ritual, and towards the end, it kind of mellows out. You know, you've just danced for a long time. I was feeling extraordinarily present, and they kind of slow down the music, and it's very, like, just meditative and calming at that point. So I laid down on the ground, and I was staring at this light on the ceiling, and so I just felt the light come down and hit me and reach me and, like, fill my entire being, it felt like, you know. And light is something that, like music, exists in space outside of people, you know. One question to keep in mind when thinking of all these things is, where does the self begin and where does it end? Is it this body? These words that I speak, they leave the body. Are they no longer my words? Are they me? Are they not? When they started in here as air, Were they mine? Was that me? You know? My thought on that is kind of the Buddhist thought that it all is one self. The entire universe, this entire space that we inhabit together is one thing. So this body is not the beginning nor the end of a single self. It is just a part of something far larger. And so in that regard, I'm seeing this light come down and hit me, and I feel myself in the light as it's in the air and above. The other, and so that kind of felt egoless as well, because it raised the question, where do I begin, where do I end? And the answer is not immediately clear. It doesn't feel like I end, right here. These aren't boundaries. These are just like physical boundaries, maybe, but this all still exists too. Okay, last example, and this was actually last night, and I feel great after this. So last night I was invited to hang out with some friends from college at their place in Denver, and I went, and we had a really good time. There were, I think, 5 of us there. We were just playing board games and like drinking and hanging out, and having a really good conversation. And so all of a sudden it really hit me that I'm going to back up very briefly. So a long time ago I was talking about situations in the sociological definition of that word. So in sociology, a situation is kind of like a unit of reality, essentially. What is going on here and now is agreed upon as what is going on here and now. And that's a situation. For example, this situation, I am speaking on Facebook Live, and I am immediately recognizable as doing that, probably, because, it says live, and you got here on Facebook and whatever. Situations tend to be obvious in their definitions, except for something like comedy or entertainment, which are inherently ambiguous, and in that ambiguity people get ideas of where it might go, and that's what makes funny, kind of. Or you could say the same thing about attractive. It's just people having ideas about what could be. But anyway, the fact that situations are recognizable is kind of the important part here. And so all life is consisted of in situations, meaning you're never not here and now. You always are here and now. It's obvious, right? But, okay. But we take it for granted sometimes. So, anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so I'm at my friend's place. We're just hanging out. And all of a sudden, it just really hit me. This is where I am. And, I was enjoying myself a lot. And so it made me wonder, why am I enjoying myself so much? Not in such a way that I was, questioning it. But more, I wanted to observe. What about this situation is enjoyable? So I look around, and I see the people I'm with, and they're kind of dressed a certain way. I wouldn't even say that. I would say, backing up even more, people present themselves in all sorts of different ways, and those ways tend to be immediately recognizable. Hair length, for example, how you dress is pretty immediately recognizable. And it kind of fits together. Everyone is a person. They have their idea of themselves. They choose to dress a certain way or, wear whatever. And it's kind of a part of their personality. So I'm at my friend's place, and I'm looking around at these people, and I can kind of feel their personalities, and I look at them, and I can see their personalities, and I'm thinking about how do we come together? How do we interact? What is it about this situation that makes it enjoyable? Well, a huge part of it is the people. I appreciate these people and their personalities, and we get along really well. But even the way people speak, you kind of you take it for granted a lot because you hear it and don't really process it, but you still choose, oh, that's kind of nice, or oh, I don't like that. Another side tangent. Oh man, one of my I don't even want to say, someone I know, I'm just gonna put it that way, that vaguely. someone I know speaks incredibly aggressively. And she wasn't even speaking to me, but she was around me and she was speaking very aggressively. And I got very upset. Literally just because of this girl's tone, you know? So that's an obvious example. So yeah, I'm looking at the people, and so the people kind of fit together. And I kind of observe myself in this situation, and I kind of look at, because I know what I'm like, pretty much. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of fit in, you know, it makes sense. This situation, there, you know, we fit together. No wonder we're having a good time together. You know, you kind of choose your social circle. But it goes beyond that. I look at the space that we're in, the room, the decorations on the walls, the color of the room, the way it is oriented, how clean it is, how messy it is. You know, all these things that kind of sit in the background, you can bring your attention to, and really appreciate. Like, I guess the question is, why am I here? And why do I like being here? Or if I don't like being here, why do I not like being here? But of course, I was having a really good time. And it just, I was just really appreciating all these things. I was really, really appreciating where I was, who I was with. But what you appreciate, though, is how. You appreciate how the place you are is. That might not make much grammatical sense, but the place you're at is in a certain way, and how it is kind of what you either find enjoyable or not. You know, it's the relationship between you and it. Same goes with people, how they are. How are these people? How do they present themselves? How do they talk? How do they interact? What do they talk about is a huge thing. So I found myself appreciating all sorts of these things. And so it was egoless in a sense that I could turn the lens on myself and say, who's this guy? How does he fit in here? What does it look like as he interacts in this situation? How does he fit in? How is he in such a way that this is where he finds himself enjoying himself? If I was a completely different person than who I am, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the situation as much, you know? So I'm kind of observing the self from the context of the outside. I'm the outside looking in. And that was really enjoyable. Because I found, well, I don't know if I'd say I found. It leads to another question, is kind of what I want to go for here. The question is there something innate about this soul that's in here? I believe in a soul. Go figure. That reincarnates and all that. Is there something innate about that makes it find itself here, enjoying itself? I'm trying to think of a way to put that differently. Is it my choice to like the things that I like? Or is it some thing far beyond me? That's also open to debate. I don't know if I have the answer to that. Okay, so with these things in mind, think of it this way. You go about your daily life. You kind of choose to see the things you see, to do the things you do, and you can appreciate that, you know? There's a connection between you and what you're doing and what you're seeing, and that connection is you, but also that connection is the choice to do those things. I don't know if that makes much sense, but again, going back to this example at my friend's house, I found myself there, and it's a choice to be there, and it's a choice to enjoy myself, and you can kind of observe that choice, whether you're appreciating it, whether it's benefiting you, making you feel good, you know, making you feel present, or if it's kind of taking away from you. Is it, you know, maybe do you kind of resist it? There's a huge point to be made on resistance here, because in theory, you could choose anything and accept anything, and in that regard, if that's true, then it's not innate that you're drawn to certain things. Because in the end, you could draw yourself to whatever you want if there's no resistance. So if the ego is an illusion, then things that you resist as a choice, that choice then is an illusion as well. And you could just go anywhere you want and feel connected to everything and just appreciate, wow, I'm alive. This is what I'm seeing. This is the world. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say on that. I ranted for a long time. That was an interesting rant. I've been having some really deep thoughts around this, obviously, because it's kind of blown my mind. It's funny because, well, I don't know if I want to say this. Yeah, I guess. I wasn't sure entirely where my meditation practice was at. And actually, this will come to the other thing I wanted to talk about, self-compassion. What's up, dude? Yo. So I wasn't 100% sure where my mindfulness practice was at. Hey, doggy. Here, come say hi. Oh, come here. Oh, come here. Oh, there you go. Come say hi. This is my little pup. My roommate's little pup. Hey. Were you gonna take her outside? Did I just rob you? No. Yeah, so I wasn't fully sure, but then you kind of experience these things and you're like, oh, dang, I'm kind of further, I'm doing better than I thought I was, I guess. And a big part of that is just patience. What I was going to say about self-compassion, or compassion in general, really, is you need to forgive yourself as often as possible. Be kind to yourself is maybe the best advice there is, in my opinion. Because if you want to make any practice, you won't see the results until you do. But the point isn't to attach to results. The point is to attach to process. To just explore with curiosity, what is my day like? Or what am I feeling right now? Or what am I thinking right now? And using these and holding them in like a nice, forgiving light, you progress. You begin to realize, okay, none of these things are permanent. I can appreciate them while they're here, while they've inhabited me, while they're in the air, etc. And so in mindfulness, the more you strive, the more you struggle. You can't become enlightened if you want to become enlightened. It's not possible, because you're giving up every single desire to be what you are not. No. The only desire is to be as you are, and to realize that you as you are is a constantly changing and unfolding process. And so it's kind of going with the flow in that regard. It's kind of dipping into those waves and like just going with it, which is awesome. And so sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's hard. That's kind of how life goes. But that's why compassion is so important, because you have good days and you have bad days. You need to forgive yourself for the bad days, because everyone, it would be impossible to be good all the time. The other interesting thing there is, like, you shouldn't crave good days or crave to be good. You should just crave to be as you are. Way easier said than done, but that's why it's practice. It is something you can practice, and again, it's just compassion and self-forgiveness that help you work on that. And forgiving others is a huge part in that process too, because that's a big part of the practice. If you can't forgive yourself, you won't be able to forgive others, and if you can't forgive others, you won't be able to forgive yourself. So yeah, it's just a general forgive. Go with the flow when you can, and when the flow gets really hard, that's just calling on you for more forgiveness. You're being challenged, Challenges are a great opportunity for growth. So, okay, I've ranted for a very long time. I'm gonna go. This has been enjoyable. I hope you all are very well, and I will see you again in like a week, I guess. Till then, I hope you have a great week. I hope you're mindful, that you can feel what you're feeling, that you can think what you're thinking, that you can see what you're seeing, these things come true for you. And yeah, be well. See you soon.